Okay, welcome to the skills training package video, right? So for this particular video, we will be looking at describe questions, how to answer questions that come with the command word describe. This is very common within the current syllabus. Often you will see describe questions that carry a total of about 3 to 4 marks, and it covers quite a wide range of particular type of questions itself, although it's under the same category. Normally, this comes as a stimulus-led question, which means that they will give you a stimulus. The stimulus that is provided will vary in the form, but there are common strategies that we can adopt, which some of you are still struggling with your answering techniques. So this particular package here hopes to address that. And if you try to follow through, this will allow you to go through and practice some of these described questions. So let's begin with thinking about what exactly does the question want when they say describe something, right? So generally, it will be stimulus-led. The stimulus can come in the form of any sort of geographical data. So it can be one of those maps, it can be graphs, it can be pie charts, right? It can also be infographics. It can also be photographs, whether it's annotated or not annotated, right? So it can be any sort of stimulus that provides information for you to interpret. Okay, now it gives you information. When you are doing the description, you are supposed to reproduce the information again and provide it as details. So in terms of doing a describe question, one of the key things that you must remember you need to do is that your answer must have details. It must have sufficient details. Um, Otherwise, your description will be taken to be very general. Okay, if you only give very general descriptors, you will not be able to secure the full marks for the question itself, be it 3 marks or 4 marks. Now, what is the fundamental function? Okay, so many a times when we are looking at questions, you need to dig deeper and figure out what exactly is the question actually asking you to do. Okay, so for the describe question is very simple, right? Think of it as this way: you have a stimulus with you, right? The marker is having the same stimulus but without any information. So if you're having a line graph, the marker has one that probably has axis only. Okay, if you're having a photograph, the marker has the same photograph frame but no picture inside. Okay, so it gets the purpose of making you do this describe function is so that the marker can recreate on his blank version of your stimulus the one that is as close as possible to what you have. Okay, must it be a one-for-one recreation? Must you give so much detail that he or she is able to provide or to recreate the exact same thing? Largely no, because this is going to be a 3 or 4 mark. So we're looking at whether you can correctly account for and justify the major trends, the major pieces of information, the major processes, the major things in that stimulus for the marker itself. Okay, so the marker only has the description that you provide to recreate. Okay, so think about it, that's not exactly very easy, right? So think of the last time where you had somebody told you to describe your best friend to them, right? If you just tell them, well, my best friend's a teenager from Crescent Girls School, right? That's not exactly very helpful. Okay, what can I infer from that? She's probably your best friend is probably female since it's a girls' school. Probably around your age, since you said she's a teenager. I wouldn't know what race she is. I wouldn't know what color her eyes are. I wouldn't know what length her hair is. I wouldn't know what her name is, right? So these are great details that are missing because you gave us a very general description. So similarly, when you're answering a described question, you can be on the right track. If you don't provide enough details, being on the right track doesn't mean you get the full marks, okay? So allocation of detail depends on the mark allocation. If you have a 3 mark, a 4 mark question, I would expect 3 to 4 main points, okay? Giving evidences within your main points as well. So type of stimulus that can be given to you include things like maps, okay, graphs. I think we've seen in lower secondary as well. Table data also seen in lower secondary as well. sometimes you may be even given infographics. I believe in your Sec 1 and Sec 2, when you covered topics like tourism and also in water supply and natural resources, you had quite a bit of infographics that you were tasked to interpret and sometimes provide descriptions of. Okay, pictures and photographs as well. Right, so these are all key types of stimuli that we tend to encounter when we are dealing with this described question type. So this particular slide here is very important, right? It's very important. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can. If not, these are the general things that recur continually when you're dealing with described questions. Number one is overall trend. When they ask you to describe, right, there generally is this one thing that they're looking out for that they hope that you would have picked up, and that generally is an overall trend. Okay, so whether it's a map, a graph, a infographic, or a pictorial, this overall trend is something that is dominating rather the entire piece of information, and you should be able to pick it up and give some sort of details to it. Okay, after you've listed that overall trend, then you look at areas to highlight, because ultimately it's 3 to 4 marks. So areas like the highest score, the highest concentration of this particular thing. Okay, the lowest score, the lowest concentration of this thing. If it's a map, or right, where do you find these things? Is there a reference point to anchor on? Are there cities? Are there longitudinal lines? Right. If it's a graph, it is what is the highest point that this particular factor reaches? Okay, what's the lowest point? Are there data points that you could have quoted? Okay, is that change? Is that increase? Is that decrease? And more importantly, not more importantly, and also sometimes are there anomalies in the particular stimulus that's given to you? There's something that is completely out of place. It shouldn't be there, but it's there. These are things that you should highlight in your described question. Now, one very important thing to note is when you're dealing with describe, right, you are not dealing with an explain. Okay, so I don't need to know reasons. Okay, so we're looking at reproducing the function. Once again, I come back to this. The function of it is for the marker, for the person receiving your description to recreate that same piece of information. The function is really not to explain why this thing happened, not to explain why this flow happened. It isn't. So to clarify this a little bit more, right, let's take a look at an example. So this is a map of the continent of Africa and groundwater stores in Africa. Right, so if you cannot remember, let me refresh your memory a bit. Groundwater stores are places where you can find underground water storage. Okay, naturally forming can be in the form of caverns, underground water tables. Right, so if you look at the continent of Africa, these are where you find groundwater stores in different level of stress. Okay, so overstressed areas means probably these are being used very, very highly. Okay, used a lot. These overstressed areas, where are they? They are actually all these parts here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 regions that are the overstressed component. Okay. Similarly, you do see things like low stress, right? Some that are unstressed. Okay, three that are unstressed. Right, highly stressed, you have two general areas quite spread apart. So it doesn't seem to be very system to this. But if you look at this area here, the variably stress is actually concentrated at the southern part. Okay, how do I know this is south? Because they give us a north arrow here. So if the question is what's the overall trend in this place here, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the overall trend, right? What are things that I can pick up? Okay, are there areas where in the continent of Africa where a particular type of trend is very overwhelming, right? Very dominating. Okay, is there a general trend that is visible? If you see a particular trend that's concentrated on one part of the continent of Africa only, okay, is the distribution right? Can you give me a few more details so that it becomes clearer? Okay, so that my reproduction of my map becomes clearer. Right, so things like this overall trend, which is the most common situation here? Right, how do I know which is the most common groundwater stress situation? You count quantity, right? You look at the areas that's largest that's covered by the color type, or can even count quantity. So in this case here, looking at it, I can pretty safely say that the general most common situation for groundwater stress is overstress in the continent of south of Africa. Where is it found is actually this sector over here, right, which is the north and northeast. okay, the northeast region of Africa. Right, where are the areas that are unstressed? Okay, or where are the areas with very low stress groundwater? This one very interestingly, this is here, this is in the south. Right, the unstressed ones is actually split up. Okay, unstressed is split up. So you can talk about it being spread around the middle and the western side of the continent, right? But uniquely, the stress is found in the overstressed parts are in the northeast, and the very stressed part is concentrated in the south, right? So based on the description that you provide, am I then able to fill up my map here? So this is exactly what I mean to help you visualize. This is exactly what we mean by what are we looking for with your description? What's the function of your description? So based on your description, if you tell me areas of high stress condition are found in the north, right in the north, what would I shade? I will find a corresponding color and I'll shade which part I believe is the north of Africa, right? Make sense? Okay, take a minute, take a look at this. Okay, later we will do a side-by-side comparison of our shaded version versus what we originally were looking for. Areas of low stress area found central region. Low stress, low stress. Why did I pick this out? Because probably it was something that jumped at me. Yeah, I feel that this is important. It shows the variety, the movement of the distribution of all these things. And so I have now given more clarity. Okay, and finally, area of variably stress are found in the southern region. Variably stress, southern region. Okay, so I've with my statement, my three statements in my description, I'm then able to fill up these three general areas in the continent of Africa to show the distribution of the stress level of groundwater. In comparison to the diagram here, right? Am I able to represent everything? No, I'm able to represent largely these three big areas. Okay, so what else could I have talked about? I could have talked about highly stressed ones. Okay, slightly to nearer between the unstressed areas. You have a block here, and we have a block over here. So these are layering that I will have maybe added in if I was looking at a 4-mark question instead of a 3-mark question here. So I would like to leave this here for a minute while you take a look at what we have gone through. Okay, how did I arrive at the diagram on the right hand side? Largely is with the description that was given to me. Does it match exactly the stimulus that I was looking at, the one on the left? No. Is it a fair representation? Actually, it's quite accurate. There's of course some things that are missing, but given that it's a 3-mark question, this kind of description, which allows me to do this kind of a visual representation, is pretty acceptable. Okay. Now, similarly, when you're looking at other types of maps, this you can also be asked to describe the distribution of other things. So in this particular map here, there are areas that are blocked out in red that indicate these are areas that are affected by tropical cyclones. So when we're looking at a map like this with a dominant phenomena that spread across, what are we looking for? Once again, we come back to describe what we're looking for. We're looking for overall trend. Are there areas where you have larger concentration of it? Are there areas where you have anomalies? Right. So in this case here, what would a suitable overall trend be? We go and focus on to the map itself. What are some areas that we can hang on to? Of course, you will remember where your continents are, well and good. However, within the map itself, there are some things that are here to help. Okay, so you can actually see that there are three terms given to you: the equator, the Tropic of Cancer, and Tropic of Capricorn. And very conveniently, your tropical cyclones are trapped between, okay, north and south of the equator, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Right, that very neatly gives us the band where you will find tropical cyclones happening. So that's very important. So that must come out as a general trend. Okay, is that an anomaly? Yes, there's this section here to the this is North America, right? You need to know this, you need to know your continents, right? You learned this since Sec 1, so you need to know your continents. So to the east of North America, there is an area that is affected by tropical cyclones. That is an anomaly. It lies above the Tropic of Cancer, and this is the only occurrence. The rest of the occurrences are really in between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn surrounding the equator. Okay, so I have general trend, I've given you a normally. What else do I need to give? Okay, what are my marking descriptors? Right, so if this is a 4-mark question, I will need to tell you on the west of America, on the east of America, right, between the continent of South Africa and the rest of Southeast Asia, as well as to the east of Southeast Asia. So by indicating all these areas, I will give a clear enough description for the marker to be able to reproduce or to shade out which areas would we find tropical cyclones on a blank map. Okay, so once again, I'll come back to this very important slide that we have. So remember what's the function of this? Right, the function of it is really to recreate, right, based solely on the description provided as accurately as possible. So your description must be very, very accurate. Okay. Now with this, I would like you to go into this particular palette here. So you can scan the URL, you can type in the tiny URL here, and go and key in the answer. We can try this out for the first question, okay, which basically is a described question for your tropical cyclone. Okay, so scan the QR code here or type in the tiny URL and take 10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes. I think 5 minutes more than enough. Right, answer that particular question and you can come back and continue the video. Okay, so you can pause the video now and you can try this out. Okay, welcome back. Right, so now that you've tried the first described question, we're going to then very quickly move on to another type of described question. This is from past year paper, okay, several years ago. Right, different syllabus, but it's more or less the same. Right, the command word is still described. So what do they want you to describe in this particular question here? They give you a line graphs, right, of 4 countries: India, UK, China, and United States. Okay, what are they mapping? They're mapping the contribution to global carbon dioxide emissions from 1800 all the way to 2015. Okay, so they in this particular question, they want you to describe how the contributions by selected by these countries have changed over time. It's a 4-mark question, so they do expect you to talk about all 4 lines. Okay, so what is very important is each of them, the overall trend. Right, if you look at it very carefully, is there an overall trend that's common among all 4 of them? There isn't. There are, because if you look at it, what is happening to UK? UK is on the downward trend from the beginning. US increasing, then decreasing. China is increasing. India is increasing. So there are actually 2 increases and 2 decreases. Right. So this is my general trend. Right. Countries that are more developed, like United States and UK, are on a decreasing trend, while countries that are developing, like China and India, are on an increasing trend. That will be my overall trend statement. Okay, so this is the overall trend, right? Having some increase, some decrease, because there isn't a common trend across all 4. This is something that I will have to highlight. Okay, individually, I will need to cover all 4 of them, right? So let's start with the easier one. Okay, easier one would be, let's look at UK, right? The UK has been on a decreasing trend from 1800 to 2015, starting at 100% contribution in 1800 to where it is now, which is below 10%. Okay, now this is to scale. So actually, if you look at it, you can actually see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is at 10%. It's actually between it's actually at 5%. So this point here is at 5%. Okay, so I'm able to tell the examiner it decreased from being a 100% contributor to in 1800 to now in 2015, it's only contributing 5% of global emissions. So similarly, I need to do this for United States, for China, and for India. Right? Data, very important. Okay, so now what I want you to do is you go back to the palette itself, same palette. On the second column, you have the same question in the pin post. Right? You can zoom in on that, take a closer look, and key in your submission what you believe is the suitable answer for this question here. Okay, so with that, this is the describe question type briefing. Hopefully, with this small practice, you get a little bit more familiar with it. And if you do more practices, I'm very sure you can submit to your teachers, and teachers will be more than willing to give you some feedback about where you're doing well, which parts need to be improved further, and we can move on from there. Okay, so take some time, finish up both postings, and we're done for